This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
The following program is rated for mature audiences and may contain adult language, adult situations, and frank safety discussions. The names and certain details have been changed to protect the safe and the unsafe, but believe me, every item in here is true. Good morning and good evening, whatever time zone you're in. This is Safety Wars. We were a little bit delayed in getting out a podcast this week. We call this OSHA Outreach and Training season. So, this time of year, usually it may start March, April, and May, and now that things are opening up again, we're getting a huge demand for outreach training, whether it's general industry, construction, maritime, and every once in a while, disaster response. We're going to be teaching a disaster response worker class in the next couple of months. So there's a lot of questions with these classes. What exactly is an OSHA Outreach class? An OSHA Outreach class is a class that is taught by an OSHA Outreach instructor. Those are people who are authorized by OSHA, and they have a training program for it. The modern training program for it is that you have to take a week of whatever standard you're in. So, for example, you're in construction, you take a week of construction standard classes, and then you take an OSHA Outreach instructor class where they teach you how to be an instructor. Same thing with general industry and shipyard or maritime training. So, construction, that's pretty simple. You have the 10-hour construction and the 30-hour construction outreach. General industry, same thing. 10-hour outreach, 30-hour outreach. For maritime, it gets a little bit more complicated, I guess is the correct word for it, where you have three different areas. You can have a shipyard, marine terminal, or you're a longshoreman, or longshore woman for that matter. And those are three separate training classes. And they're each either 10 or 30 hours. And then you have the disaster response worker class, which is either 7.5 or 15-hour classes. Typically, these classes run a maximum 7.5 hours a day. So the quickest you could get an OSHA 30 class, regardless of where you're working at, what arena, construction, general industry, or shipyard, or maritime, is going to be 4 days. A 10-hour class is going to be 2 days, right? Usually 5 hours a day. Now, the disaster response class, they designed it so 7.5 hours for the 1-day class, 15 hours for the 2-day class. Now, we used to get phone calls all the time. I don't know if people were trying to be funny or what have you. How many hours does a 30-hour class take? How many hours does a 10-hour class take? And the obvious answer, either 30 or 10 hours. But they'd say, well, we know a guy, or we know a person, or we know someone who is giving out 10-hour course cards, and we only attend 2 hours, or 30 hours, we can do it in 1 day. And I tell them, hey, look, that's nice that they do that. Not really nice, because, that's illegal to do. And if you're doing that, that's fraud. And then they immediately hang up the phone. So, obviously, 10-hour course, 10 hours, 30 hours, 30 hours. What does the course entail? So, usually 3 parts. You have required topics. So for general industry, you would be walking working surfaces. All of the programs except disaster response have introduction to OSHA, things of that nature. Then you have some elective courses and some optional courses. And every one of these classes is supposed to be tailor-made for the audience and for the people that you're with. So for example, in the construction arena, you may or may not have a class or a section of the class that includes the 1926-1200 regulations, specifically on construction confined space entry. Some classes may have it, some classes may not. This is why these classes, they're not actual certifications. They are actually outreach training awareness courses. Even the 30-hour courses, they're all awareness courses. Certain jurisdictions, New York City being one of them, require the 30-hour course in construction through the Department of Buildings, things of that nature. So these are the basic outreach training courses. With us here at JCP Technical or Safety Wars, we teach all 4 classes, all 4 areas. Construction, general industry, maritime, all 3 disciplines in there, and also disaster response training. And if you're interested in taking these classes through us, you can reach us at jim@safetywars.com. Now for the content of the course, what's in there? Introduction to OSHA, which introduces the employee to exactly what OSHA is and what OSHA does, and how to file a report, a complaint, how to look for resources, what the workers' rights are, among other things. The rest of the courses are very highly variable. There's no real standard curriculum other than the topics and the time limits you have to hit for each and every topic. So this is what instructors often do. You're only allowed to go over up to a certain percentage for movies, for example. At times in the past, what have they done? Instructors would throw in a movie, and that would be the whole topic. If you're getting that level of training, that's really not training. That's probably the most ineffective type of training. The types of training that you want an effective instructor to have is something that's interactive. Something maybe a little bit funny, a little bit memorable. You have to have props. You have to have something tangible. And all these courses are tailor-made for the audience. So, for example, if I'm going to be dealing with a bunch of folks that are going to be laborers, that's going to be much more hands-on. This is what you need to look for and things of that nature when you're dealing with these hazards, with this equipment, what have you. Versus, let's say you have a whole bunch of engineers, scientists, and high-level managers that are taking these classes. That's a little bit of a different focus, where you want to focus on how do you manage the jobs. This is what you need to be looking for during your audits. These are your workers that you are supervising. This is their responsibilities, and these are their rights. But however, you're the employer, these are your responsibilities. So it's a little bit of a different focus. And what I try to do is I try to go and tailor make it for the situation that I have. So prior to going to the job, what we normally do is we'll do an interview of whoever is sponsoring the class. We rarely ever do an open enrollment, so I'll call up the company. Hey, what kind of company are you? What's your NAICS code? So I can maybe look up some of the injuries that are common in their industry, things of that nature. Then what I'll end up doing is, if I can, I'll visit the site prior to the class. And we find out maybe some of the safety issues they have, find out a little bit about the company, and learn about it. This way, I'm able to go and speak to them. These are what you have to deal with. Still cover all the topics, because if you don't cover the topics, you get into huge trouble, to say the least. But this is what our style is. If you're not getting that kind of insight, that type of engagement, then you have to ask why. You have to ask your trainer, hey, and let your trainer know, hey, what's going on here? Do you want to know what we actually do here? And this sort of thing. This is one of the advantages of having an in-person trainer. Or if right now they allow it today, but they may not allow it in the future, where you're able to deliver training online with special permission, like via a Zoom platform or any other platform. Right now there's a handful of trainers that are doing all of their training online. It was approved many years ago. There's like I won't mention the names, but you sit there and it's like the old-fashioned film strip from the 1970s, where you go in there and they read off a PowerPoint, and then it advances to a next PowerPoint presentation. And and then they have verifications and everything. My issue is this. One, people just click through. I know of a case where there was a student at Drexel who did this with continuing education programs for attorneys, and she got caught doing this. Attorneys would hire her, and she'd just go through and click through and everything else. Eventually she got caught, and the attorneys had big issues because they paid her to do this. So that's what you need to be aware of. The other thing is this. Most employees, even if they're honest, they go through this program, they don't actually absorb anything because it's very boring. That's why you have to have engaged, in-person, as much as possible training. The other thing is this, on these online programs, the employees don't actually finish those types of programs. So you just have PowerPoints and you have a recorded voice and things of that nature. A lot of my business in the past has been, hey, my employees started this course, whether it's HazWhopper, an outreach course, through online, and it's all pre-recorded. It's an online program, but they got through 10 hours and couldn't handle it, and it was a waste of time. This is the advantage of using a live instructor with all of this stuff. I'm not saying get rid of online stuff, but use it appropriately, and don't expect someone to sit there for 10, 30, or 40 hours to watch this stuff. So, develop an effective training program, be engaged. That's how you're going to win the safety war. In part is through training. And training that's relevant, training that may be exciting, engaging instructors, a couple of stories, things of that nature thrown in there. For Safety Wars, this is Jim Polzel.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.